Welcome to Chapter 3 of Module 2, Crisis Management. In this chapter, we will focus on Business Continuity Management Planning, often referred to as BCM planning. Business continuity planning ensures that organizations can continue operating during disruptive events and recover critical functions as quickly as possible. In this chapter, we will examine how organizations develop, implement, and test business continuity plans. We will also look at key components such as risk assessment, business impact analysis, recovery strategies, and operational continuity. Understanding these concepts is essential for CPP candidates because business continuity is a critical part of organizational resilience and effective crisis management. Business continuity management planning involves a comprehensive approach to protecting critical operations during disruptions. This includes designing continuity strategies, developing response procedures, and regularly testing plans to ensure they work effectively in real situations. A well-structured BCM program begins with risk assessment to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities that could affect operations. It then moves to business impact analysis, which helps determine which processes and services are most critical and how quickly they must be restored. Based on this analysis, organizations develop recovery strategies and continuity procedures to maintain essential operations even during disruptive events. Business continuity plans are designed to ensure that the organization can maintain or quickly restore critical operations during disruptions. First, these plans help save lives by ensuring proper safety procedures and reducing the chances of injury or loss of life during emergencies. Second, they help protect assets, including physical facilities, equipment, and other valuable resources essential for operations. Third, business continuity plans aim to restore operations by enabling critical processes and systems to recover quickly after an incident. They also help reduce downtime, minimizing the duration of business interruption and limiting financial losses. Finally, effective continuity planning helps protect the organization's reputation and relationships, ensuring customer confidence and maintaining trust even during challenging situations. Every business continuity plan must clearly define the people, places, and resources required to manage disruptions effectively. First, the plan should identify team members and their roles during a disruption. Everyone involved must understand their responsibilities and reporting structure. It should also define alternate locations or transportation arrangements, ensuring that critical staff can continue operations even if the primary facility becomes unavailable. Clear communication paths and templates must also be established so that accurate information can be shared quickly during emergencies. In addition to people and locations, the plan must include checklists and resources. These help guide the organization through preparation for disruptions, response during incidents, and the process of returning to normal operations. The plan should also include lists of needed resources, financial considerations, and procedures for specific disruptions that may require specialized response. Business continuity teams are a critical component of the BCM process. These teams are responsible for developing continuity plans, maintaining readiness, and supporting the organization during disruptions. Their responsibilities include preparing plans that address potential crises such as damage assessment, site restoration, payroll continuity, human resource issues, information technology recovery, and administrative support. Team participants must have meaningful input into the planning process. This ensures that they clearly understand their roles, responsibilities, and where to report during an emergency. When teams are trained and familiar with continuity procedures, organizations can respond more efficiently and restore operations faster. According to the ASIS BCM guidelines, business continuity plans and procedures must be formally established, implemented, and maintained. These plans should be designed to manage disruptive events and support recovery objectives identified through the business impact analysis. First, organizations must notify and communicate effectively. This requires clear internal and external communication protocols during disruptions. Plans must also remain specific yet flexible. They should define immediate response steps while still allowing adaptation to unexpected threats. Another important aspect is to focus on impact. Plans should address events that could potentially disrupt operations based on realistic assumptions and dependency analysis. Finally, continuity planning should aim to minimize consequences, implementing mitigation strategies that reduce the overall impact of disruptions on critical processes. Business continuity objectives must be clearly defined and measurable. These objectives can be qualitative or quantitative, depending on the organization's needs and the level of operational risk. Typically, objectives are driven by the results of the business impact analysis, which identifies critical business functions and the timeframes required for recovery. Key performance indicators, or KPIs, should be established to monitor how effectively continuity strategies perform. These indicators help evaluate the organization's ability to respond, recover, and minimize disruption. Objectives and targets should reflect what the organization aims to achieve, and they must be periodically reviewed to ensure they remain relevant as risks and business priorities evolve. Writing the business continuity plan requires understanding both operational priorities and environmental conditions that could influence disruptions. Organizations must determine which business functions are most critical and what resources are required to restore them. They must also identify conditions that would require relocation, including where operations could move and how quickly that transition can occur. Another important consideration is whether alternate facilities can support communication systems, IT infrastructure, security requirements, and essential services. The plan must also address whether vital records are backed up and retrievable, and whether emergency funds are available to support recovery activities. Finally, organizations should ensure that telecommunication options are available for alternate sites, including radio, cellular, satellite, and internet connectivity. Protecting vital records is essential for maintaining continuity during disruptions. These records include important operational and administrative information required for restoring services and maintaining organizational functions. Examples of vital records include customer data, payroll and personal records, engineering drawings, financial records, contracts, and operational procedures. Organizations must ensure that these records are properly backed up, protected, and accessible during emergencies. At the same time, it is important to remember that business continuity planning is a continuous process. Plans should be reviewed regularly, updated as risks change, and reinforced through training and exercises. Management involvement is essential throughout this process to ensure that plans remain practical, current, and aligned with organizational objectives. Business continuity plans must be tested regularly to ensure that organizations are prepared to respond and recover effectively during disruptions. Testing and exercising help validate whether procedures, communication channels, and recovery strategies actually work in real situations. Different types of exercises can be used depending on the objective. Orientation exercises are introductory sessions designed to familiarize participants with the plan and their roles. Tabletop exercises involve facilitated discussions where participants walk through a scenario and review their actions step by step. Functional exercises simulate an incident as realistically as possible within a controlled environment, allowing teams to practice coordination and decision-making. Finally, full-scale exercises are the most comprehensive. These involve live, realistic scenarios where emergency teams perform their roles as they would during an actual event. After every exercise, organizations should conduct a post-exercise review, documenting lessons learned and identifying improvements to strengthen the continuity plan. Risk management plays a central role in business continuity planning. Organizations must first understand the relevant business objectives and operational priorities before they can effectively assess risks. When risk assessments are aligned with business goals, they help organizations focus on the most critical threats and vulnerabilities. Security events can significantly impact organizations, potentially causing damage to operations, financial performance, reputation, and brand. If risks are not properly managed, they can also lead to regulatory liabilities, legal challenges, and long-term reputational damage. Therefore, effective risk management ensures that organizations identify potential threats early and implement strategies to reduce their impact on business continuity. In today's interconnected world, organizations operate in a complex global business environment. Various categories of risk can affect business continuity, and these risks often interact with each other. Economic risks may include market instability, inflation, or supply chain disruptions. Environmental risks involve natural disasters, climate change, and environmental degradation. Geopolitical risks arise from political instability, conflicts, or international tensions. Societal risks include public health crises, social unrest, or workforce challenges. Finally, technological risks involve cyber threats, system failures, or rapid technological disruption. Understanding these risk categories helps organizations anticipate challenges and incorporate them into their continuity and resilience planning. A structured process is required to identify and prioritize risks that may affect business operations. The first step is risk identification, where organizations recognize potential threats that could disrupt critical activities. Next is risk analysis, which evaluates the likelihood and potential impact of each identified risk. Following this is risk evaluation, where risks are compared against the organization's tolerance levels to determine which ones require immediate attention. The results are compiled into an assessment report, which supports decision-making and prioritization. Many organizations also use tools such as SWOT analysis to examine strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats when assessing operational risk. This systematic approach ensures that limited resources are focused on managing the most significant risks. To ensure consistency and reliability in risk management, organizations rely on established risk assessment standards and frameworks. One example is Octave, which focuses on evaluating critical threats, assets, and vulnerabilities. NISA risk assessment frameworks provide guidance for managing information security risks. The NIST cybersecurity framework offers widely adopted guidelines for identifying, protecting, detecting, responding to, and recovering from cyber incidents. COBIT provides governance and management practices for information and technology systems. The ISO Enterprise Risk Management Standards support organizations in integrating risk management across all business activities. Finally, ASIS risk assessment standards provide guidance specifically aligned with security and protection management practices. These frameworks help organizations build structured, consistent, and effective risk assessment processes. Brand and reputation are among the most valuable assets of any organization, and protecting them is a key objective of risk management. Reputation reflects how stakeholders perceive the organization, including its financial strength, operational reliability, and overall behavior. It also influences relationships with customers, regulators, investors, and the public. Brand value represents the trust and recognition associated with the organization's products, services, and market presence. A strong brand and positive reputation help organizations maintain customer loyalty, attract partners, and sustain long-term growth. However, crises or poorly managed incidents can quickly damage reputation and erode stakeholder confidence. Therefore, organizations must incorporate brand protection and reputation management into their risk management and business continuity strategies. Business Impact Analysis, or BIA, is a critical part of business continuity management. It helps organizations understand how disruptive events could affect their operations and identifies the priorities for recovery. One key area examined in a BIA is financial and legal impacts. Organizations must evaluate the potential financial losses and legal consequences that could result from operational disruptions. Another important consideration is regulatory requirements. Many industries operate under strict regulations, and continuity plans must ensure that critical regulatory obligations continue to be met even during disruptions. The BIA also identifies the maximum tolerable downtime, which is the longest period that a business function can remain unavailable without causing unacceptable damage to the organization. Finally, the analysis examines resource requirements, including personnel, systems, and operational dependencies needed to restore critical functions. By understanding these impacts and dependencies, organizations can prioritize recovery strategies and allocate resources effectively. As part of the business impact analysis process, organizations must identify and prioritize the assets that support critical operations. Assets can be divided into tangible and intangible categories. Tangible assets include physical resources such as facilities, equipment, and infrastructure. These are often valued using replacement cost or market value methods. Intangible assets include items such as intellectual property, customer relationships, brand value, and future revenue contributions. Although they are less visible, these assets can be just as critical to business success. During this process, organizations also define key recovery metrics. Recovery Point Objective, or RPO, represents the maximum amount of acceptable data loss measured in time. Recovery Time Objective, or RTO, refers to the maximum acceptable time required to restore systems and resume operations after a disruption. Another important metric is maximum allowable time, which indicates the point at which organizational viability may be threatened if operations are not restored. Defining these metrics helps organizations design effective recovery strategies. This slide illustrates the relationship between Recovery Point Objective, RPO, and Recovery Time Objective, RTO. RPO represents the point in time to which data must be recovered after an incident. In other words, it defines how much data loss the organization can tolerate. RTO represents the amount of time the organization can take to restore systems and resume normal operations after a disruption. In the diagram, the disruptive incident occurs at a specific point in time. The RPO determines how far back the organization must recover its data, while the RTO defines how long it can take to bring systems back online. Understanding the relationship between RPO and RTO is essential when designing backup strategies, disaster recovery plans, and continuity procedures. These metrics ensure that recovery efforts align with the organization's operational priorities and tolerance for downtime and data loss. A business impact analysis often uses structured questionnaires to help managers evaluate operational priorities and recovery requirements. One category focuses on business processes, identifying the specific processes that must be restored quickly to maintain operations. Another category examines dependencies, such as systems, personnel, suppliers, or external partners that support critical functions. The BIA also looks at criticality, asking which business units or processes are most essential for the organization's survival. Alternate resources are another key area. Organizations must determine whether temporary staffing, backup facilities, or substitute suppliers are available if disruptions occur. Another important category is work backlog, which evaluates how delays in processing tasks could affect operations and customer service. The BIA also examines tolerance to outages, determining how long a business function can remain unavailable before significant consequences occur. Finally, organizations assess the maximum disruption time, which represents the point at which continued disruption could lead to unacceptable losses for the organization, its customers, or its stakeholders. To summarize Chapter 3, effective business continuity management requires strong planning, coordination, and continuous improvement. First, plans must be living documents. Business continuity plans require regular testing, review, and management commitment to remain effective. Second, teams are the engine of recovery. Trained and exercised continuity teams are essential for responding quickly and restoring operations during disruptions. Third, risk assessment drives strategy. By identifying threats and vulnerabilities, organizations can prioritize resources and focus on protecting what matters most. Finally, business impact analysis establishes recovery priorities. Metrics such as RPO, RTO, and maximum tolerable downtime help translate business impact into clear recovery objectives. That brings us to the end of Chapter 3 of Module 2. Thank you for watching. If you found this lesson helpful for your CPP preparation, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others preparing for the CPP exam. In the next video, we will continue with the next chapter in Module 2 on crisis management.